A sign that Singapore has continued confidence in the potential of cryptocurrencies despite recent industry headwinds. The central bank has issued 3 more in-principle approvals for its digital payment token license. Now, it allows companies to offer crypto services. Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat says while cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and unsuitable for retail investment, the blockchain technology underlying them has potential, and that's why Singapore remains keen to work with blockchain and digital asset players.
We are committed to partner innovative and responsible players to grow the Web 3.0 ecosystem and community in Singapore. We'll facilitate live experiments through regulatory sandboxes, including testing the feasibility of DeFi and asset tokenization. We hope to do pioneering work in these fields in a way that will benefit lives and our regions.
Well, since 2020, all digital payment token services providers operating in Singapore must be registered and licensed. There are now a total of 14 who've been granted licenses and in-principle approvals. But industry watchers describe the license as a double-edged sword that could keep the big players away. Brandon Tanoto with more.
High cost and long waiting times are some of the challenges digital payment token services providers face when applying for a license in Singapore. Around $400,000 needs to be set aside. This includes a security deposit of up to $200,000 as well as legal and advisory fees. Then there's $1 million each year, which industry watchers estimate is needed to pay compliance costs, including compliance staff salaries. And when the new Financial Services and Markets Bill kicks in soon, licenses will be compulsory for all DPT service providers in Singapore, regardless of whether or not they serve local customers.
This would be very disruptive for existing players. Yet another concern is the timing of license applications under the Payment Services Act. So some applicants have had their applications processed for more than 2 years.
Still, some analysts point out that a rigorous process is necessary to sieve out the bad eggs and protect Singapore's reputation as a trusted financial hub.
People who are fly-by-night and who are not willing to comply or to pay the cost of compliance may not be the suitable players that we want to welcome to Singapore. As I said, these rules and laws are not cast in stone. We will evolve, but I think we need to set high standards at the outset so that we be taken seriously by serious players.
Earlier this year, Singapore's central bank banned crypto ads and crypto ATMs in public areas to discourage the trading of cryptocurrencies. Just last month, Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat also warned retail investors to steer clear of cryptocurrencies after the Terra Luna crash saw some investors lose their life savings. However, he notes that the partnership between regulator and industry can be a powerful and positive force for change. He says Singapore will continue to adapt its rules to ensure that regulation doesn't hamper innovation.
Now let's delve deeper into this issue with Zenon Capron. He is the founder and director of fintech consultancy Capron Asia. Mr. Capron, thanks for joining us. First of all, give us a sense of how big a deal these 3 new licenses are.
Look, we've been seeing over the past year the MAS moving towards more open licensing for crypto companies in Singapore. So I think it's easy to look into the timing on this, that now that we're in a kind of a crypto bear market with prices of Bitcoin down nearly 70 or 80% from the highs. But realistically, this is part of an ongoing effort by the MAS to gradually open up the crypto industry in Singapore in a manner that they see appropriate, that doesn't introduce too much risk.
Yeah, you mentioned there that route that the cryptocurrency market has been facing lately. Where do you see the new licenses sort of in that context? Like, how does it take, the next step forward?
Well, clearly the MAS's biggest concern is retail investors. I mean, they made that very clear in both their announcements and some of the pushback against crypto advertising in Singapore, as well as some of the platforms that don't offer products that are really suitable for retail players. Now, the question of whether a retail investor should own Bitcoin or not remains to be answered. But clearly, these regulations are moving in step with that consumer protection top of mind for the MAS. And then, I think we'll gradually see this open up a little bit more as crypto assets become a little bit more mainstream.
When we see, the door sort of open to these digibanks, what kind of opportunities do you think Singapore is looking out for, in opening the door to them?
Look, I think with the digital banks, it's an interesting mix, right? Because you have the crypto licenses and you have the digital banks, and really it's the next step of Singapore's evolution as a fintech hub. I think once we started to see places like Hong Kong and Australia really invest in digital banks, Singapore was obviously going to be one of the countries that followed suit. Now, how the digibanks play together with crypto will be really interesting because digital banks, in theory, make it much easier for people to access their money and move money around and potentially access crypto. We've seen that from some of the larger global digital banks like Revolut, where you can actually buy and sell crypto within the account. Whether the MAS will allow that within the scope of what the digital banks can do here in Singapore kind of remains to be seen.
When you take all that into account, the rise of digibanks and as well as Singapore as a crypto hub, how do you think Singapore ranks when you compare it with, other crypto hubs like Dubai and Switzerland, for example? Where does this place Singapore on the map?
Look, I think if you asked the question 2 years ago, the answer would have been simple. It is very high up. I think what we've seen over the past year and a half is some regulation that doesn't really fit with I would say, overly friendly crypto market. And we've seen a lot of companies move their headquarters out of Singapore. Several exchanges and other players. The regulations have become more onerous for them, but with the idea of weeding out some of the chafe and really getting to the companies that are providing a clear product and service. So it remains to be seen, over the next couple of years, how MAS's positioning around crypto in Singapore evolves. But clearly, if it wants to remain a center of fintech and financial services, especially wealth management, crypto is a key part of that value proposition and needs to be part of Singapore's future.
All right, Mr. Capron, thanks very much for those insights. We've been speaking there with Zenon Capron. He's the founder and director of fintech consultancy Capron Asia.